Good morning, everybody. Hello. We're so happy to have you all here. So a little bit about Get Satisfaction before we get started. Get Satisfaction is the leading customer engagement platform. So really what we're doing is we're helping companies build authentic relationships with their customers. So what that means is we've got over 65,000 customer communities, and those are different communities where over 35 million consumers are coming each month to connect with each other and the companies they care about. So what they're doing is they're asking questions of the company and pre-sales questions and of each other and of employees. They're sharing product ideas, they're reporting problems, and they're just giving their overall feedback. So this is helping companies acquire more customers, improve customer service experience at a lower cost, and driving product innovation. So you can see the business benefits that we've helped our customers achieve, whether we're talking about Mint, who's achieved 75% reduction in support tickets, or TechSmith, who's had 1,200 product ideas generated just from the community, the people who are using their product every day. So there's a lot of things that we see that customers community can do for our customers. And with that, we are really excited to turn it over to Gast, the Director of Customer Support at Rhapsody, one of our favorite customers.
Great, thanks very much. Welcome, everyone. I'm JR. I'm the Director of Support here at Rhapsody in Seattle. My goal today is to walk you through how Rhapsody uses Get Satisfaction as an important part of our customer support program, and then have time at the end for all your questions. So I'll be brief, and then we can sort of engage in a dialogue. So first, quickly, what is Rhapsody? We're the #1 premium online music subscription service in the US. We offer millions of songs to our members on more than 70 devices, including all the major smartphones like iPhone, Android, Windows Phone, and BlackBerry, as well as on the desktop, the web, connected televisions, TiVo, and other home audio components. We've got north of 1 million paying subscribers, and we offer service in the US, UK, and Germany. And our headquarters are here in Seattle, Washington. So much of the focus of my customer support department is spent on these goals. There are 2 basic buckets, and this is primarily what we use to think about how we leverage Get Satisfaction within our customer support ecosystem. So these 2 buckets are sort of the top 3 and the bottom 3. The top 3 are directly related to my CS team, and the bottom 3 are related how the rest of our employees here at Rhapsody, who are not directly related to the CS department, can get the pulse of the customer base where appropriate. So just to briefly touch on these. So, a good mantra, the best service is self-service. So typically customers don't want to contact support. If there is a queue where in customer support, they call up or use Get Satisfaction and say, I just wanted to let you know everything's going great. We don't see that very often, right? Typically, customers come to us with a question or an issue that needs resolving. So if they do come to you with a question, how do they get their answer through a channel that they're comfortable with and has little effort for them? Then the next one is the classic reduce support costs. So how do you, year over year, keep an eye on the money you're spending while make sure that the value that you've got for that support channel is high? And then emphasizing the one-to-many. So how do we emphasize and increase opportunities for the one-to-many exchange with customers, meaning how to best answer a recurring question one time and then let everybody see it? So then the next few points below relate to how other employees in our business here at Rhapsody need to hear from, communicate to, or sometimes directly interact with customers. So beta and feature testing. At Rhapsody, we're a big portion of what we do is we're a software shop. So we build, iterate, and ship lots of software. So we're always testing a new feature, a new button, or a whole-scale redesign. So our internal dev teams are always looking for a quick and simple way to engage with, what I call Rhapsody friendlies. So those advocates, the guys that like your service, and how can you contact them and have them poke around on something and give us some quick feedback on it. And then employees seeing issues in real time. So how can employees who need to get a pulse easily of the customer do that on even a daily basis without having to wait on customer support to pull and analyze data? And how can those employees, see how things are going for us as a company after things like a product launch, or sometimes, unfortunately, an outage, or a feature rollout, et cetera, without having to wait a month and say, well, how did that go last month? Or did you get many contacts on this? How can they get a sense of the relative volume and how the customers are speaking about what their questions are? And then finally, can they easily directly engage? So typically, the customer contacts in an organization are handled by the customer support department. But there are those brave souls in the company who are not in customer service directly, who find value or necessity in occasionally directly engaging with customers one-on-one from time to time. So how can they do that about topics they care about and may have control over in the organization as either a decision maker or an influencer? How can they see that in a way that's easy for them to manage? So those were the goals that we sort of look at the Get Satisfaction lens through. So in thinking about those, this is how we leverage Get Satisfaction. So the solution is basically fairly simple in its idea. It's 3 areas. So one, we used their integrated widget. So we have a support page. We have a number of support properties, but we have one main support page area. We added the Get Satisfaction widget to the different areas, the topic areas of that main support site. And we use language to invite and encourage the members to post a question. So we said things like, see what other Rhapsody customers are talking about and get an answer from the team, get an answer, share an idea, report a problem, or just talk. Try to let them know this is a place you can come and have a conversation, and also Rhapsody is here and we are actively assisting you. So that widget then searches the topics in our community, provides recommendations on like topics related to the search, and then allows for comment posting, replies, or a separate post. So now that we have the widget engaged and we're building our community, then we needed to get employees to participate. So we encourage our employees to participate from outside CS. Today we've got about 35% of all Rhapsody employees are signed up and participating in our Get Satisfaction community in some way. So part of the value for them there, and also from my standpoint as a leader in CS, is to be able to have those employees see real customer issues spoken in real customer language. They can see it in real time, and it's not just a line on a graph on a weekly report. It's not just a dot somewhere. This is an actual customer speaking about our products and the questions and issues they may be having in their actual language. So internally, we have separate teams. We have a development team for mobile, a development team for desktop, an e-commerce team, et cetera. So the customers don't think in those broken up areas. The customer sees it as one seamless thing. They pay their bill at the beginning of the month. They use the iPhone app. They go home. They use it on their connected television. They go to their friend's house. They log in on the web on their friend's computer and play music there. This helps our sort of separated team environment see that, reminds everyone, hey, the customer uses a little bit of everything everywhere. And also it helps with that language piece. So like many organizations, we have a lot of internal jargon that we use, and we're very close to our products. So we may find comfort in speaking about them in a way. Well, we may need to have somebody mute. I got a lot of feedback there. So continuing on, the customer language is important. So we use a lot of internal jargon like a lot of organizations do about our own products. And it can be difficult when you're developing and launching something if you're still thinking in that mindset. So for example, I mean, we're a music company. What we do is we give you songs, you press play, and you have a good time. What we may say internally is something to the effect of, you know, I was streaming some content through the mobile client the other day on my device. That's how we'll talk about working on stuff here internally. Customers will never say that. Customers will say, I was trying to play a song and it didn't work. What's going on? And it's great for our internal development teams and other folks not related to customer support directly to be able to make sure they understand how customers talk about our products. So now we have employee participation and the value that it provides. And then customer service, what do we do? So we provide some air cover. But for the employee participation piece, we really have, I think there's 4 kinds of organic participants that you'll see in a Get Satisfaction community from a company. So I've given them nicknames in our community. There's the lurkers, the announcers, the goalies, and the actives. So I'll just briefly touch on how this developed in our organization. I think it's healthy and it works for us. So the lurkers in our community are employees who subscribe to one or several topics of a product area of our forum, and then they monitor that activity from the sidelines. So they get a real-time view of what customers are saying on topics that interest them. They don't typically engage directly in reply, but they do keep that pulse and they can see it. So then the second are the announcers, and these are typically product owners of some kind who provide updates on a feature or a new release or something cool that's upcoming. They may or may not respond to the customers who then post after that, but they're fairly active in their update cadence. And then we have another that, the third one is something I call goalies. So the goalies will many times jump into a topic and talk directly to customers. And when that conversation either moves out of their area of expertise or begins to take up too much time working their day job, they will then kick that conversation back into play to someone else, typically asking CS for guidance or allowing us to take over the thread. And then the actives, these are Rhapsody employees who are consistently engaged with the customers day in and day out. They enjoy it, they're good at it, they're in there all the time. So where CS comes into line is we provide the air cover. So we have CS agents and internal members provide overall support. We own the community. We take members offline when the issue involves billing and private data. We merge threads, archives issues, do the housekeeping, all that stuff. It's really our house, and the other employees are sort of invited to come partake in the party that we're having. So that's how we execute on Get Satisfaction today. So the next slide, let's talk about some numbers here. So from a customer support FTE perspective, we handle all the issues that CS needs to touch in Get Satisfaction with about an FTE and a half. We have one fantastic advanced tier customer support team member here in Seattle who spends part of his day as the main Get Satisfaction community manager. And then we also have a small number of our call center agents who dip in from time to time to help as backup during after hours and some weekend time. But it still adds up to really just less than 2 FTE. And then you'll see the sort of the big numbers there, the 50% decrease in cost and the 53% decrease in support contacts. So let me set this in some context. We launched GetSat in 2009, and from 2009 cost to 2010 cost, we saw an overall decrease in our support costs from around 50%, and our contact volume decreased from just over 50%. So to set that in some context, let me be clear here. There were many levers, and we had some circumstances that we were able to control, and we did a lot of work. And it was not GetSat alone that was responsible for those savings or those decrease in contacts. However, it was a significant contributor to both, I believe, the dollar savings, the contact deflection, and the value that it added to our internal teams for them to be able to have that visibility into the customer base. So it was definitely a very important weapon in the arsenal that we've had going forward. We get about 88,000 page views this is a monthly snapshot, the bottom 4 bullets there. About 88,000 page views per month relative to our customer base size and some other metrics as a benchmark internally. That's pretty good for us. It also does get more than our internal knowledge base system, which based on how we deploy that knowledge base system is actually great for us. Right now, when people search for an answer about Rhapsody, they will typically see Get Satisfaction first, which then allows us to sort of inform how we use our knowledge base on the back end, how we create agent training, et cetera. And then from the active piece, on a monthly average, we may see 400 or so new topics with maybe 900 replies or comments floating between topics. So you may have one post that has one topic and it's an idea and there's never a reply or a comment, and you may have another that has, several comments and replies and me toos and things like that. So that's sort of the activity there. Get satisfaction, our community is, I believe, a less expensive channel than our traditional support channels when viewed through a lens that includes things like topics and comments posted, and then the deflection of the members who found their answer, and then because they found it, did not post separately or contact support in another channel. And then, we're a fairly small company, so we've got about 71 employees that are participating in sort of those 4 nicknamed roles that I spoke about earlier. So moving on, that's how we're executing today. What are we doing tomorrow? So what's next for us with Get Satisfaction? So we recently have just deployed the Enterprise Edition. We're focused on 2 things going forward with that. So the Enterprise Edition of Get Satisfaction provides a sort of a deep and thorough analytics suite, and also allows for some custom branding and some enhanced widgets. And so we're looking to deploy those sort of across our ecosystem and really get into the analytics of how can we now optimize. We're pretty good at, we can pass, dribble, and shoot. How do we really get in and now optimize how we're using this both as Get Satisfaction a standalone, and then how does it inform how we use the rest of our support channels. And then, based on some best practices, so we've had a few, very practical meetings with the GetSat team on some best practices in terms of service hours and turnaround times and whatnot, and we found that using the Enterprise Edition and the analytics, we're able to determine some things about, we can actually reduce the SLA, reduce the turnaround time, and our customers are answering more questions between themselves, and also then be able to optimize the number of FTE we have. So what that will allow me to do is let my advanced tier agent here in Seattle go off and do other things that interest him more, and be able to push sort of a single FTE's amount of work into a community manager, and thus sort of removing that sort of half FTE that we have. So I have one employee that I'm able to develop, let him go off and do things that are more exciting, and then bring in less staff, but still handling the number of new posts, comments, and replies that we get. We're also looking at doing a formal champion recruiter program. So today we have a handful of Rhapsody advocates. So these are customers who just came to our forums and they like us, they understand our products, and they're really happy to go in and help other customers. So we're looking at ways to begin to analyze who are the great posters, and how do we make sure that we're turning them into advocates and formalizing a championship program on our forums. And then, we do a lot of mobile here at Rhapsody, and so focusing on how to leverage the iOS capability of Get Satisfaction into our mobile apps so the customers can use that as a line of defense within the app, and then how to integrate the widgets across our ecosystem so that we can have more folks searching and using Get Satisfaction. And then just a refresher, using the community manager certification program that GetSat offers to sort of refresh and reboot everybody to make sure that we're employing all the best practices that we can as we begin to look at this in a new way for my fiscal 2013, which begins in October. And so that's really a high-level version of how we're executing today. And so now I think it's Q&A time.
Thank you so much, JR. So everyone, we're going to start the Q&A portion, so feel free to ask in the questions box. And we do actually have some questions here. So JR, the first one is, how long did it take you to get your Get Satisfaction community up and running?
No time. I don't think we went from, setting the thing up, you could do it in a couple days. It was super fast. All you do is you design it with the sort of buckets of areas that you want and the selection of sort of the style of widgets that you need. And you can have the website itself up and running in almost no time. Then in terms of the widget is fairly self-explanatory from a dev perspective. I'm not a dev, but the guys that plugged it into our website, it's sort of a copy and paste, sort of set it and forget it thing. So I think you could probably get something up and running, have the idea to try it on a Monday, and by Friday you're up and running.
Okay, great. The next question we have is, do you have your community integrated with any support ticketing system?
So we do not. We use Right Now Technologies, which is not connected to Get Satisfaction. However, we came up with a simple way to create tickets out of that, which is the majority of the things that we can fix on Get Satisfaction, we don't ticket. But then the stuff that requires us to pull offline, we simply we bring the customer offline by asking them to send a quick email with the thread, and then that just goes into our ticketing system, and then we create the ticket out of that, and we're able to manage it from an aging perspective, et cetera.
Okay, great. Another question just came in from Alex, and he's asking, how do you decide which of your staff should answer each question?
So ours sort of naturally occurred, but I'll tell you how we think about it, which is our internal community manager, our advanced tier guy, who knows everything about everything. It's really his, and so his job is to spend a few hours a day answering, and because he has the knowledge, he can answer almost anything. Then there are a handful of dev and product owners who monitor it on their own naturally and are good at it. They just have a talent for it. And they go in and answer things that are about their own product. And then if we run into something where we're not sure how to do what, we simply reach out to those individuals and say, hey, here's a post. Could somebody take a look at it? Would you like us to respond? How could somebody, would you like to respond to it? So it's fairly natural. But CS is really the tip of the sword. We're the ones who answer. When in doubt, if it needs answered, we're going to answer it. That's really the goal. Everything else is more a value add. So customers like to see product owners and people who are in charge of stuff answer things. So we try to encourage that as much as we can. But at the end of the day, it's really the support guys that, when in doubt, will go in and answer it.
Okay. We have a question from Barry, and he's asking, how many of your employees actually moderate the community?
I would think out of the 70 or so that sign up, I think we probably have maybe 15 or so that I would call very active. And then there's probably another bucket of 15 who are somewhat active, and then it trails off into lurkers and guys that sign up and maybe didn't touch it too much. So I'd say half of those are active in there.
Okay, great. We have a question from Jonathan, and he's asking, how did you go about engaging the 71 employees, assume roles outside of the customer service environment?
Yeah, so the original version of that was fairly straightforward. We set up a kind of big brown bag training session and said, hey, we have this opportunity. There was also an internal demand that was being met, right? So the internal demand, and this was 2009, 2010, the internal demand was being able to see some stuff, some feedback, and some customer things, and how can we get engaged, et cetera. So just giving a quick brown bag training session and walking them through the logistics of how to do it, and then sort of seeing how active everybody was. And we found that the natural engagement, the organic engagement, pretty much fed our needs, so we didn't really have to beat people over the head. We have enough people from the different areas who are talented enough to be able to answer questions about their area of expertise that we didn't really have to go back around and poke everybody with a stick and say, hey, look, you've really got to get involved here. Though that can always be a challenge. I mean, you've definitely got to keep a pulse on that and make sure that, if you find it's just your support organization in there, then you've got to sort of refresh and reboot and make it valuable for the others to be able to go in and see it who are not necessarily connected to support. But we've been fairly lucky in that the amount of hands that we have in there seems to be working for us.
Okay. Our next question is, why did you select Get Satisfaction, and what have been the biggest benefits to the community features?
Yeah, so Get Satisfaction was selected. So we previously had another forum community that was built into our previous incarnation of our CRM system, so connected to the thing in which we control knowledge bases and emails and other ticketing. And the requirement was, could we find something that had less cost, with more visibility, a little simpler and nimbler to be able to deploy in areas? And so Guest Satisfaction had the cost per month was great, and the nimbleness and the ability for folks to be able to view it without having to sort of log into a CRM and have a license and do all this other stuff was very useful. And then the ability to customize it was also useful, and the widget aspect where we could create landing pages of our own and then just embed Get Satisfaction in it at the time. That was, I think those were the elements that sold us. Also, the setup, again, was nice. Once you make the decision, you go and you're sort of there.
All right. Well, that's all the questions we have for today. If your question didn't get answered, we will be getting back to you within 24 hours. And thank you for joining us. Feel free to visit us online at getsatisfaction.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. And thank you, JR.
Great. Thanks, everybody.